And what you're saving is the pieces of yourself that you have not been able to access until you go through that darkness first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I believe that you don't really know light until you experience the darkness. Even going back to the Hermetic text, when it talks about God being the all, you can't say that since you're walking in light energy that you're plugged into God if you're ignoring half of God,
right,
which is the darkness. So that's part of the beauty of going down to that dark side, seeing that trauma and all that stuff. Once you get past that, you see the things that generated those things, which is God also. Once we understand that everything has polarity, that's when life begins to happen. Like that's when a man understands his higher mind and lower mind, or his ego self and Christ self work in harmony. That's when man can go to the second marriage of man and see that him being in his masculinity, his wife being in his femininity. Yeah. That's the true marriage. Right. That's when he can go to his brother saying, you know what, I'm a whole man and I can see other whole men like me, and we can have a third level. You know, once a man understands that polarity, life happens, bro. Like I always say, man, to wake up and ask himself, who am I and where am I going? Like if I could leave my son one thing, it will be that. It will be to wake up every day, ask yourself, who are you, where are you going, and what is your own personal truth?
So my question for you is, so who are you?
Welcome to the Warriors Way Home podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Warriors Way Home podcast. I'm your co-host Edmund. My brother Travis here.
What's up?
And we have a lovely guest today. If it was not for this man, we would not have this podcast. Our brother Soul Immortal.
Oh man, Soul in the building.
Man, it feels good to be here, man. I've been wanting to be on y'all's podcast for a minute now, bro.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm loving what y'all doing, brother. Loving it, man.
So we are actually here in Arizona for a men's retreat that Soul put on for us. We all got the chance to come out here in Arizona, enjoy this beautiful scenery, fellowship with other brothers, and just make sure that we're here to strengthen each other as best that we can. And man, we just wanted to sit here, ask you a couple questions, get some perspective from you about how your journey has gone, what manhood means to you. Talk about your book here, A Singular Truth. I highly recommend you go and get this book.
Absolutely, man. That and his YouTube channel, I mean, it's got, for our audience and the guys who are doing what we're doing, you just got to know that these two things have influenced both of us a huge amount. I mean, listening to his perspective and the way he breaks things down, I mean, he's that, if you didn't have that daddy, it's like, if you didn't have that older brother, right. Sometimes knock you upside the head and tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Right.
This is the dude, and this is the book.
For sure. So, so tell us, for those who aren't familiar with your work, which of course we're going to link all your stuff in there as well.
Absolutely.
How did you get started, man? Where are you coming from?
Man, how I got started on the mission I'm on right now, man. It simply started from a desire to do it, man. But I was just in that procrastination mode, and just a certain amount of things happen in life, man. Crossing paths with the right people, reading certain literature. To one day, man, I said at some point, if I don't start now, then at some point I'm going to be living in regret until I die. And once I understood and felt what that regret would feel like, it just fueled me to start moving. And that's when I really began to step into my mission or my purpose, man. So it was. The deciding factor was for me was feeling what that regret would be like in the future, brother.
Absolutely. So what brought us here, the event we're doing is for our group, the Power Circle. So for those of you guys who don't know, the Power Circle is a group of like-minded, I'd almost say enlightened beings on this journey together. Figuring ourselves out, figuring out our path, and coming together to make this world a better place. To be honest with you, so. What was that initial? I mean, we know, but what was that initial start of the Power Circle? And what brought that kind of into being that brought us together in this moment?
Yeah, what the Power Circle started. It's funny how it started. The Power Circle started by I made a video. I believe it was about some kind of relationship type question.
Yeah.
And we just started. We just decided to take the question offline onto my Patreon channel. And it started from one conversation that led to another conversation. And before we all knew it, it just evolved into like, this is new. Us men coming together, having a conversation without the outside world.
Yeah.
And it just evolved into what it is now. But the way it started was just, us deciding to separate ourselves from the masses. Let's get in a closed circuit and have this conversation one-on-one.
Right.
Having no idea that it was going to do what it's doing now, man.
Right. For sure, man. It's been amazing.
So we say here at Warriors Way Home that our mission is to create well-rounded modern-day men. But this is, and restore that warrior mindset. But this is how we're doing it, by being able to fellowship with other brothers and filling in those gaps where, maybe sometimes you're not good with your spirituality or your finances, or how do I work with my family? How do I communicate with my lady?
How do I be a man?
How do I be a man in general? These are all questions that we sought answers for ourselves. And I think our first episode, we said that we wouldn't have met if it wasn't for the Power Circle.
No, yeah.
So we definitely want to say thank you for that.
Being
able to bring that platform and that content to us individually, which brought us together.
Beautiful thing, bro.
And working off of that, speaking of that dad piece, one of my questions was, in a lot of your YouTube channels, I hear you talk about your dad quite a bit, and it's been really impactful to hear you talk about him, because it shows, it's very obvious that you had a lot of respect for your dad in a major way, which is saying a lot, because I'm guessing it's been a while since he passed.
Oh yeah, 30 plus years.
And you can tell there's still that impact that he's having on you. So one of the questions I had was, with him, what age did he pass away?
When I was 12 years old.
When you were 12?
Yeah, and he was 43.
Okay. And 12, heading into that teenage year, that's rough for a young man to head into, with the dad, let alone with having that, kind of almost taken away from you at that point. What did you feel like now, looking back now, because I'm sure it was different then, looking back now, did it feel like there was almost like a gap missed? I'm sure there was in a certain sense, but as far as becoming a man, the man that you are, did you feel like you had to kind of figure it out on your own, or did those lessons that he taught you up until 12 kind of still guide you? On that?
It's weird. It's weird how it happened, because, once I became an adult, once I became 25, 35, I could look back and see what he taught me between, birth and 12 years old. And I still remembered it. But it didn't really make sense until I was older. So, that's when I really started giving him props, man, because I said, it's amazing how he taught me so much in a small time that still impacted me on down the road.
Yeah.
So that's why I still give my father so much credit. Now, at the time, from 13 to 21, not having him there, but it was something I don't wish on anybody.
Was there any anger there? Because I know some guys, I hear them talk about that situation like that, and they're like, there was a bit of anger, not maybe like a huge one, but there was a piece of them that was like almost angry that he wasn't there to help guide him through. I didn't have any anger for my father. The only time anger crept in is when I became an older man and I began to see or either see or learn about the imperfections in my father. And when I say that he was actually a man,
that he was actually
the
human.
man he was, not the father. He was the man he was.
Just really realizing that he was human. Because looking at my father, even when I think about him between birth and 12 years old, he was a superhero.
Greek Adonis.
So it's like he can do no wrong. So for me to hear about one kink in his armor, I'm like, oh, now I'm angry. But I had to just realize, oh, he's just human.
Yeah,
he's just human, man.
Definitely.
But again, man, what he taught me between 0 and 12. And I understand now, he used to drill things in me, like do things a certain way, like throw this in the trash and do it again, like make it right the first time. Now I understand why he was teaching me those things, man, because they stick with me now.
Definitely, that's amazing.
Absolutely. One of the questions that I have was, what were some of the principles that were most important to you during that awakening stage? Like we talked about how you had a mentor in your father and being able to bring you to that point. But once you were on your own, or even when you started to get into that awakening phase, kind of what you call stepping out of becoming a common man, what was there anything? Well, actually, I would just say overall, what kind of brought you to that point once you became your own man?
Yeah, as far as like leaving the point of wanting to be the common man, I would say, man, I just began to see the writing on the wall. Like, I began to see the generation before me. I began to see the results they were getting in life. By the time they were, 40s, 50s, 60s, I saw the results they were getting, the misery they were living in. I said, I don't want that. And I could see the divide between people that were, I don't want to say the word thriving, but the people that had peace, as opposed to the people that were just living confused. But I'll say this, man. I knew at a very young age that I would be separating myself from the masses. And I didn't understand, for example, like when I talk about my truth, I understood. I remember I was either 6 or 7 years old. I remember being in Sunday school class and saying to myself, I hear what she's saying, and I understand this is what we're all about. But one day, this is not going to be my truth, and I know it's going to be part of my mission to shine light on this new truth. I knew that from a young age. So when I started separating myself, it was really not like a awakening, separating from an old world. It was more like now I'm returning to where I'm this original state, man.
For sure. So you were also in the military. You were in the Army. How long were you in the Army for?
I did 6 years in the Army.
6 years in the Army. Awesome. So I call it a super Army brat. So mom, dad, stepdad, all did 20 in the Army.
Wow.
So at times it felt like I was in.
Yeah, no doubt.
But it was when I talked to people who weren't in the military, it was a whole different dynamic.
Yeah.
It was like when you're around that environment, it's like every guy I met that came to our house was like G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Little kids, you see this big dude, 6 foot, bald head, boom. I was like, it's like a damn G.I. Joe dog, man. Yeah. It's like I actually went to go in, but that didn't end up happening. But that it creates a different mindset in most people that you think about things a different way. You're more the discipline is on a whole another level with a lot of these guys. How did being in the military kind of shape your world with that? Do you think it made you look at things in a different way than the majority of men?
It did. Well, I won't say different than the majority of men. What the military did for me was fill that gap between 13 years old and 21 years old. Because even though like my mom dated and she dated a very good man, the fact that he wasn't my father, I couldn't really learn from him. So I just went through my teens really just trying to wing it.
Gotcha.
And really me picking up masculinity, to be honest, was from the dope boys. I'm like that has to be what masculinity is.
Which a lot of guys do.
Yeah, that's common.
When they don't have that at home, the first guys they see that are going to show them any love, a lot of times it's the dudes on the block.
Yeah.
It's like they're going to be the ones like, come on, man, let me show you how to move. It's like, clean your shoes off. It's like, get your hair right. It's like, what you doing?
Yeah.
Wash your face.
Exactly. So when I joined the military, it was a breath of fresh air, man, because now I was in the room with a lot of guys that were living a straight way, but a lot of them were raised by their fathers, and it was a culture shock to me.
Yeah.
And I'm looking and I'm understanding what's real weird, man, is where I understood how to start being a man.
Yeah.
Was from a brother, man, who was younger than me. A brother named John Lamax. He's passed away now. I served with him. He was my sergeant. He was younger than me. And I didn't understand what was taking place at the time. But I would get up on the weekends, man, go over to John's house. We were working on cars. And just to watch John, I was married, just to watch John interact with his wife, his kids, the way he worked around the house was foreign to me. And then to be serving with other brothers that were raised by their fathers, I just started to pick up those things that I didn't even know were not there, man.
Right.
So the military raised me. The military filled that gap between 13 and 21.
Oh yeah, because a lot of guys go in at 18, and so with that being said, would you suggest the military for like a younger guy looking for some of those pieces? Because you're a lot of guys say that if you don't have that, guys get in trouble all the time, and or it used to be this way. I don't know if they still do it, where you would, if you got dragged in front of court, you had enough trouble. They were like, hey, you either go to military, or you go to jail.
Yeah.
It's like you're almost 18. It's like you're either when you turn 18, you're either going to military or you're going to jail. And a lot of guys went in the military because of that, because they got so much trouble in these streets because of stuff that was going on at home, not having dad. Or, dad wasn't representing and showing them the way, or even dad was out there in the streets like that, to the point where, they got in so much trouble that eventually it was like, hey, army, jail. And a lot of guys go into the army and they say, that actually really like saved them in that instance.
I would say, I'm not saying I would really recommend the military. I love the military, but I would say if a young man doesn't have someone to reach out to that's living, what we have to understand is that like a lot of men like us right now, if a younger man came to us that was 16, 18, 21, 23 and said, hey man, you know what? Like I didn't have this type of person in my life. I need some guidance. We would bring him up under our shoulder. Yeah. But when we were 18, we didn't know that. Right. We were like, well, if Pops is not here, then I gotta figure it out on my own. I would say if a young man doesn't have a neighbor or an uncle or
Power circle.
Power circle to be associated with, the military is definitely a way to go.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna pick up those things with no no effort at all. You're gonna pick up that masculine,
Oh yeah, and I think having even channels like this or your
Yeah.
channel is like, because I didn't have there wasn't YouTube when I was growing up. It's
Exactly.
Like, so I'm in that. I mean, we're both in that in between age where it's like we remember before the internet, but we grew up having access to it. But when I was a teenager, I didn't have YouTube. I didn't have podcasts to listen to about masculinity or anything like that. It was just like you're winging it, bro.
Yeah.
Like you say I'm just going.
Yeah, but the thing is that because just sitting there talking about it, it's like, man, young brothers have an advantage because if they need that masculinity, YouTube is right there. So it seems convenient, but at the same time, both entities are on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they can get on, they get on YouTube and
get into that darkness, the black pill,
just as
get
easy.
hard into that red pill. We talk about that that or just go the opposite complete way. It's like, oh, this is how you be a man. You cater to everybody else, but you don't worry about yourself. Or you're supposed to be you're supposed to feel and show your feelings all the time and be not be controlled with and not be stoic, you're supposed to feel. That's the most important thing is how you feel,
right?
And
So
not
magnified.
Exactly. So there's those two, like I said, those two entities. It's like
So how, as for a common man, because we're a little bit privileged, as in we've already done some of the harder parts of healing ourselves, figuring out how do we align our thoughts, actions, and emotions. For somebody who is just starting out, if they wanted to get into a space where they can't trust the people who are around them, but they want to build a community that will help them become the better man that they can be, how does a common man discover or build his own power circle?
I would say, man, that like I always say, a man must know two things. A man must know who he is and where he's going. I think once he establishes that and says, you know what, first off, let me realize that something is not right. Like I understand that there's a collective conscious way of thinking, and I understand that there's a small group of people that just move to their own beat. Has nothing to do with their financial status. Like they just move to something different. I think a man should first say, you know what, who am I? Where am I going? And start moving in that direction. And at that point, don't associate with anybody except people that are moving in that same direction. And I think a circle would just form around him. And a circle may not be an organization of people getting on Zoom calls and having meetings. It may be a group of people that first start at we taking a 20-minute, 30-minute break, and 2 or 3 brothers out of 200 are going to a certain part of the parking lot having a conversation that's healing them, and they don't even understand.